Welcome to the Heart of the Equation, where analytical minds explore leadership, professional growth, and the human side of success.
This is the space for business professionals in the STEM field to reflect, grow, and redefine success on their terms.
Together, we'll dive into challenges, transformations, and stories that can help you build an authentic, purpose-driven career.
Let's get this started.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Heart of the Equation. Today, we have another wonderful guest, Manish Sharma. He's a leader in pharma industry. We are so honored to have you. Thank you very much, Manish, for joining us.
Thank you for inviting me, Sarah, Anisa, and Pragati. Looking forward to the next hour for our discussion.
Wonderful. So as we were just discussing before the podcast, the topic today is going to be about team building and how to mutual learning in a team. So what does that mean exactly? What's or if there's anything else you can add to that, Manish, and we can kick off with the questions later.
Sure. What that means is how we approach any discussion, any interaction for that matter, whether it's in a leadership position, in a peer position, or anyone else, even in a family setting. And that comes with the mindset, right? Certain assumptions that we make at a certain time about other individuals or perception, because we do, as humans, have a habit of within a second putting someone in a block in our mind subconsciously. And that's where mutual learning comes in to get out of that subconscious level, or at least coming to an understanding with that subconscious and saying, okay, that's my initial perception. I acknowledge that to yourself, right? But when you go into that discussion, go with an open mindset, go with an approach of compassion, go with your own accountability as well. Just like you're putting someone in a box, maybe someone else is putting you in a box as well. Not everyone is perfect. And why is that important? Why are those that mindset which comprise of values and assumptions, why are they important? Because they exhibit in your behavior. And humans are very smart. Your behavior, whether that's a clue with your gesture or your eyes or anything else, they'll pick it up. And if you have that mindset, oh my God, I got to deal with this person, it'll come across in your behavior. Versus if you go with that compassion mindset, it'll come across in your behavior as well. And what's the most, with the outcome, the successful outcome would come out with the second one, where you go with an open mindset. So that's what mutual learning is all about. Getting to genuinely, have that genuine curiosity of getting to know the person, getting to know their perspective, even when you know them. So that's what mutual learning is all about.
Thank you, Manish. That's very interesting. Such a human approach, actually, which I think is missing in a lot of places. What do you think, Anisa and Pragati?
I mean, it's exactly what I was thinking, that Manish, we so need this kind of a mindset, especially when we think of people in middle management and even more than in leadership positions, especially when you have these large teams. And what happens most of the times is that when you have these really large teams, say 100 plus people, then it starts becoming more like just resources. And then that's the point in time where this curiosity and, understanding people, this takes a dip. So that's one of the challenges that, I feel managers, even they face, and then they kind of are more focused on what the goal is and forget the human aspect. So for me, it's extremely important that, you treat people with that mutual respect and give them a chance to, exhibit different perspectives or the talent that they bring to the table.
Agreed. Yeah, people will surprise you on what they know. And that's where the genuine curiosity is important. And that's where they feel the safe space as well, right? If you have that genuine curiosity, if you have that compassion, they'll feel that. and they'll feel safe and exchanging, their real, what's on their mind with you. And that's the job of a true leader, to have that
Absolutely.
understanding on where people stand, what are they thinking.
Mm. I had the pleasure to work with you, Manish, in your team, and I can share that the immediate things that I really felt in, our one-to-ones or big meetings that we had, it's like safety, the ones that you were leading. So that safety and compassion that you were sharing before. Do you think that compassion and safety are the key ingredients to create that culture of mutual learning, or there are other key factors that you want to share with us?
There are other key factors, but what you mentioned, Anissa, that they are foundational. Without that, nothing else matters. That's where I think that foundation is very important, and to have that on the back of your mind going into any discussion, no matter how that individual is, what your boxing has been about them in your mind, you got to go with that foundation of compassion. You have to let go of anything else and say, if I want to have that mutually beneficial outcome, I got to go with that mindset. Yeah. And I think your other question, Anissa, was, are there other ingredients? Absolutely.
Right.
Uh, yeah, remember I said values. What are those values? Transparency is important, right? To the extent you can. As a leader, sometimes you cannot share everything, which is okay. And it's okay to say, look, I can only share so much, but if there is anything else, I will let you know when I can. That provides that safe space, curiosity, uh, at least making people understand that, hey, we are making an informed choice by having this discussion. That's the ultimate objective. It may not align, or the other person may not agree with it, but when they see the process, they understand, okay, their perspective has been considered and their questions answered. They get on board. They will say, yep, okay, I see why you're saying what you're saying. And even if I don't fully get it, I'm on board and implementing it. So I think all those factors come in. And one key thing I think as a leader, one has to understand, am I contributing to the problem as a leader?
Hmm.
Um, and that's where people should have the safe space to be able to speak to you, that, not, they don't have to fight with you, but they can at least express uh, their thoughts and what they were expecting. That's how you get to know, and you have to judge it yourself, because sometimes people will give you clues, and you have to go with you have to go and have that, understand that perspective, the emotional intelligence, right? Being able to read people, their cues that they're providing you. So absolutely, there are many, many other ingredients, but the compassion is foundational for sure, and open mindset.
I really like two words in, and then I pass to Sora and Pragati with the other question. As I really work with you and as you describe this process, the end result is building trust. So to have full trust to the leadership, to do not have this feeling that, okay, there is something, it's not shared with you. They're just like kind of i- doing something that they want to hide. There is no hiding, and you matter. So giving that feeling, it's something that really build trust. And when there is trust, of course, your performance, what you're doing, your dedication, everything change, right? And the second things, your reflection, it brings me to mind that only a war leader, like a conscious leader, you need to have self-awareness to ask yourself, am I contributing to the problem or am I solving? So that is also a big part. I give the word to Pragati and Swara for the rest. Thank you so much for the answer, Manish.
Yeah, no
Was-
worries. Yeah.
That was very, very interesting what you shared about this safety and trust. I guess part of it also is company culture, and also the maybe the bigger team culture, because I've also seen sometimes someone has that humanity, some leaders have that humanity to lead like that, but they are put in a company culture that does not honor that. There is like task, get things done, and and people get a different message from higher level management, and then there is this. So what do you recommend to a leader who find themselves in this position that they really love to help, they want to protect their team, they also want to grow their career, they still want to do the right thing for the company, and then they're a little lost between like what's the right thing to do?
Yeah, I think anytime in anything in life, at least start with yourself, start with your immediate surroundings. Regardless, there will always be noise. Some places, the culture, some people are blessed to be at places where the culture is remarkable and encourages mutual learning. Some places not, for various reasons. Regardless of the reason, like I said, culture, start in your surroundings. As a leader, one should talk to their peers. And maybe you're then contributing to creating or a new culture in that company. It'll get only to maybe a couple of functions, around you, which is fine. At least your microcosm is working well.
Mm,
And if that provides success, probably the senior leadership will see that as well.
mm.
And because they're looking for results, right?
Yeah.
So if they see results because of that mutual learning, and some other functions are not providing those results, they have to question, hey, as if they really want to be successful as a company, they have to question and look into why certain functions are more successful versus others, and then try to bring those leaders and have them go across the company, talk to other leaders, and hopefully that'll become a culture throughout the company. It's a long journey. It doesn't happen right away in every place, but that's what I have to say to your question. Not sure if I answered your question fully.
You did, yeah.
You did, you did.
That's very
And
helpful, actually. Yeah.
and really, we do see this, right? We do see in the same company, certain teams have
Yeah.
like the best, they just love working for the company because it's a function of how their leader is treating them, what the team rapport is, what the vibe within the team is. And then there's another team in the same organization feeling absolutely miserable, demotivated, felt like they don't have that safe space. They cannot be vulnerable. They cannot be open about the problems that they face. So I think it's uh, in bigger organization, and I'm sure you've seen this in your career, that one team has a varied experience, a completely different 180-degree shift between how they operate and how another team does. But I think it's a good idea that it might create a ripple effect when you keep talking to your peers about it. I just had one question when you were talking about, I call this the good leadership
Mhm.
principles to have. But how do you keep that fine line between, say, the openness, the fact that you give your teammates a chance, there's mutual trust, there's respect and things like that. But how do you make sure that they stay accountable to whatever the goals are? Because at the end of the day, we are not a family here. We are working towards a goal, and there are a lot of parameters that you have to achieve on a daily basis. So how do you really kind of walk that fine line?
Actually, there's a book called The Dichotomy of Leadership. So that talks about this, that, how a leader could find themselves in a very split situation where I'll give a simple example. Like, okay, so if one person on the team needs handholding, right, in a certain area because you're exposing them to it, it's okay to give them that hand, but at the same time, don't give them so much hand that they totally start relying on you for everything in the future, right? Your goal is to get them to a point where they can learn this new skill and become better at what they are good at and add to their strengths, right? Um, so that book, it's both on Audible if you want to listen to it, or a paperback copy. It's really, really remarkable. It's written by two guys who were U.S. Marines, and they have been in war situations, leadership, and how what they did not just impacted themselves, their team, but it impacted them to a point it was life and death situation, right? So how they kind of juggled with that dichotomy of their decision making and in different aspects, right? There's so many aspects we can't cover them all here,
Yeah.
but I'll highly recommend that book to okay, so going back to the book, sorry. So US Marines, they talk about the situation, what happened on the ground. Then they talk about a business. They're consultants right now to the business world. And many companies call them, and it's called extreme leadership, extreme ownership, right? So you take that as a leader, you have to take that extreme ownership. And they go and analyze, talk to CEOs or different teams that, hey, why certain things are not working. Even if people are taking extreme ownership, because at times that dichotomy, they're not balancing it well. So I think something to look at. We can talk more on this topic if there's a specific example but that's what comes to mind.
This is actually, I'm definitely going to check that one because a lot of dichotomies I can think of. I was actually, before we talk, because the topic is about teams, I was also thinking about a challenge I had a few years ago when this whole idea of servant leadership was becoming so famous. And I thought, like, oh, that's so cool, being a leader who's serving. But I noticed in action, I always struggled between people pleasing, like servant leadership, too much protecting people, too much saying yes. And then sometimes I had to have difficult conversations. Sometimes I had to let go of people. And that was like, still, it hurts when I talk about it. It's so difficult for me to fire people. I don't even like to use the word. So that finding that sort of balance of sometimes that you have to actually be very assertive, say the things, and at the same time being that human, showing compassion. So what does compassion mean to you in this sort of situation?
Compassion is okay, starting with, first of all, if let's say you're in a new team, getting to know people, right? Have that genuine curiosity to get to know them. So that's one. Once you know them, you've known them for years. So you should know their strengths, weaknesses. What are they interested in? What really invigorates them, right? What are they passionate about? See how there may be opportunities within your function, within other functions, to provide them those opportunities, so that they feel like really rekindled and wanting to be happy, right? That's the bottom line. If people are happy, they'll do the right thing. But
Yeah.
at the same time, you have to balance it. They're accountable at the same time with their goals, right? So you cannot let that stays. That doesn't go away. Uh, so that's where, so okay, so that was the second thing, getting to know them, getting to know their strengths, giving them opportunities. And then if you are, forget a team, in a team environment, but also if you're working with other companies, like in pharma world, I've worked with CMOs, different CMOs. You may be standing light years apart on coming to a solution, but having again that genuine curiosity to understand, hey, what are you looking for? What is it that you may not be saying, but you want in this mutual relationship where CMO is not just a CMO, right? They're your partner, they are your extension, they're making the product for you. So getting to know them, that they are open enough, again, creating that safe space for them to be able to express what they want. And then you being able to tell them, look, this is how far I can, you don't offer it first, but this is how far I can go for you. Let's meet in between. So coming to that mutually beneficial solution with that mutual learning, I think that's what, did I answer your question there?
Yes, yeah. So you gave me some ideas about how to set those boundaries, like just how, what is really like, are we congruent to that goal that we are setting? And there are always going to be challenges. So yes, thank you.
It is a good question, Sarah, also for me, that sometimes we just mix the kindness and compassion with really setting boundaries, right? And ask for respect. Respect is boundary, right?
Yeah.
Ask for what has been agreed. And I think those things are so important. And it is so nice to hear that we can combine them, right? So they are allies, they can work together, they are not enemies. So we can be kind, we can be compassionate, and at the same time, we can put boundaries and ask for respect. Let me ask you the next question. We are talking today about the mutual learning and grow in a team. So we talk about trust, we talk about compassion. So ingredients that are can build those, let's say, pillars. From the other side, what do you think that comes and gets in the way in the corporate environment, and how can we overcome them?
I think the amount of work that's there, the speed at which it needs to be delivered at times, uh, may let us lose sight of that compassion because we are caught up in that rut of wanting to just deliver, deliver, deliver. So as an example, you achieve a awesome goal, which was a stretch goal, let's say. You got to take a moment to celebrate. You got to thank everybody for that. Have a dinner, right? It doesn't take much. Have that get together. That's important to celebrate that moment instead of just keep going. So that's, I think that those are very important things, and that's what impedes sometimes, that constant rut, the constant delivery, move on to the next goal. That's what are the issues sometimes that make people lose sight of some of these things.
Thank you.
Pragati, would you like to ask the next question?
Yeah, I was actually thinking about Manish having worked in, I think, a very global setup. And have you seen like differences in how, like, do you collaborate with teams differently based on where they are based? Have you seen certain differences that come when you work with, say, colleagues based in Asia versus Europe and then the US where you are? How do you kind of foster that kind of collaboration when it's between different regions?
Sure. So I'm going to try to answer this question with a dichotomy, okay? So people are people, right? That's one part of it. People are people regardless of where they're from. People will respond to that openness, transparency, curiosity, genuine curiosity, right? Because they can read that, they can feel that, and they'll feel that safe space, right? Though the dichotomy of it is because of the cultural differences, because of the way people have grown up in certain environments, they may not. You have to understand, and that's where genuine curiosity, when you're getting to know them, comes in. That what do they mean when they say yes? Does it mean yes to your question? Does it mean yes, I understand it? But no, I do not agree with you is unsaid. I think that's what you have to really understand. Having worked with Japan, that's where this example came from in my mind. I think Japanese culture is remarkable, incredible. The way they have taught, like I've seen some of the kids, an example comes to mind with some kids running running to us, like around us when I was walking on the street there. They stopped just because we were older and walking, and they were going to cut us off. They didn't want to cut us off. They stopped. They asked us to, even though they were in a rush. So they let us go. And I told them, go, no, go ahead. You're in a rush. No, no. Then they let us go. And that, as soon as we went, they still said thank you. Yeah, arigato gozaimasu, and then ran towards the bus that they were going to miss otherwise. So I really appreciate the Japanese culture, but I have learned that when they say yes initially, if they don't know you very well, they'll say yes, that, okay, I understand what you're saying. That's what that yes means. It doesn't mean that they agree with you. And that's when you have to ask more questions. Again,
Hmm.
a genuine curiosity and getting to know them is important.
Yeah,
So
I think the
that's
genuine curiosity doesn't have a language. When you actually give people respect and kindness, and you genuinely are interested in how they feel, and that affects how they perform, that's something that's, I think, globally true.
Yeah.
But one of the things that I was thinking of is when I was working in India, I was always in a global role. And when I was with J&J, I was always working with colleagues from the US. And then I was with Unilever and I was always working with colleagues from Europe. So I was like, how hard will it be when I move to Switzerland, really? It's not gonna be such a big deal because I've always been in global roles. But the moment I moved from an Indian office to a Swiss office, everything changed. Everything. And that's when this statement that culture really eats strategy for breakfast became I mean, it was one of the biggest statements that stood out for me, because really, I mean, and that takes curiosity, like you said, Manish, that you have to be interested in how people operate and what are the words really meaning or leaning towards. So yeah, so agree.
Yeah.
Passing it to you, sir.
Yeah, culture is almost like a language. It's includes the language, but it's like a new way of being, and it really plays a role. It can create misunderstandings, or it can also add to everything. I had another question that would be relevant to the new leaders who are listening to this. So when you're like a team leader in a company, you have the, let's say, luxury to hire the people you really want, and you kind of have a very good overview of the strengths and weaknesses and communication styles of your team. So you can really pick who you want to work with. But most of the time, when someone takes over a new leadership job, they just inherit a team. Maybe they're not even like comfortable working with some people, but they just have it. It's just like a package that's given to them. So, what do you suggest to a new leader in the first 3 months, or let's say first month, to do to get to know the team in the most efficient way, their strengths and weaknesses and all of that?
Okay, I'll start with a quote here that really inspires me. Uh, a leader is not someone who does great things. A leader is someone who inspires others to do great things. So keep that on the back of your mind. Whether you inherit a team, whether you're building a team, it boils down to how you approach your team, how you get to know them, and create that safe space by, again, getting to know them, providing them that safe space. Be accountable yourself if you're holding them accountable. Uh, Understand that different perspectives is what, makes us more successful. So all those things are important. Talk about assumptions in there. If you don't understand it fully, ask them questions. Let them ask you questions. Uh, Share all relevant information to the extent you can. Explain the reasoning and intent. If people understand that, I think they're on board. They get it, that why you're doing something. Many a times, again, in the rut of doing things quickly, we fail. We forget that we have to make people understand. So that's very important. And have that understanding that, hey, if you're leaning towards a certain box for a certain person, make sure you understand that, are you contributing to the problem? And have that open, honest, genuine conversation with the intent of not with the intent of making them, just passing the buck, but with the intent of improving the other individual, and understanding their perspective, and also understanding that differences are opportunities for learning. So that's what I'll recommend to a new leaders.
Yeah, that's actually a very good point. Also, not to just label people like, oh, James is an underperformer, box underperformer forever for the next 100 years. And it's also important to actually know this, because as a leader, you're also affecting their career, how they are known in the organization, how the name is. So such a big responsibility. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. Actually, if you want, I have an example of that where I inherited a team in my past life,
Yeah.
and one of my boss gave me a, just an image of a certain person on my team. Let's call him JB. his name was JB. And he said JB is just horrible. I gave him, a review. Think about it if you want to let him go this year. I was like, whoa.
Wow.
So that's how I spoke to this person for the first time. But I did not let that impact. I had to think, I had to back off. I said, I erased what my boss told me in my mind. I went with that open mutual learning and getting to know this person. And I found him to be remarkable. I mean, such a great person, such a great contributor, and with the right intent for the company, for the function. I mean, he really wanted to do the good things. He had such a great relationship with the CMO. And when I got to know him, I never ever expressed to him that, hey, this is what my boss told me. He himself came to me a month or two later and said, hey, Kelly was my boss. So he said, Kelly, who was his boss for the past, year or so, gave me a bad review. And I don't know why, but I wanted to at least, you must have seen it. I wanted to at least have an open conversation. I said, great. I mean, let's talk about it. Why do you think he said that? And what that made me get to is that the two individuals, JB and Kelly, had very different way of communication. Kelly was the kind of leader, okay, done, let's move on to the next thing. He never took time for compassion versus this person, he was craving for that understanding. The amount of time he was putting in just was unbelievable. So I really acknowledged that. And slowly I started telling not just Kelly, but Kelly's boss or my boss's boss about JB. And it changed. He got raving reviews in the following couple of years. But if I had let the same thing impact me, what Kelly told me about JB, that would have been not fair to JB. So yeah,
Wow, that was gold what you just
That
shared.
was good. Yeah.
I'm playing back a lot of scenarios in my head, and I'm sure a lot of people who listen will do the same. It was so important that you took ownership. You had that leadership to allow yourself to actually not follow your your probably line manager's advice. That was
And
very
also, it's very natural, right? That you
yeah,
would take the previous person who was in the same role, you would consider that. Uh,
right,
it's quite normal that that happens, especially when you're entering unknown territory.
yeah,
You do want some information and feelers of what this team is like. How would
right,
I kind of settle in? But, to give him another chance and, let him open up and then realize that maybe both of them are doing a great job at their own, whatever their function is. But it's just that their communication mechanisms are so different.
right.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think it asks braveness.
yeah,
So I have seen you, Manish, and many other leaders that are compassionate like you, and it requires braveness to set boundaries with respect, up to top to say, hey, we are doing our job really greatly, and at the same time remain with compassion and change the life of a person, right? So, talking about those softer skills, let's say compassion, vulnerability, emotions, and also maybe sensibility, that is a big topic. Many times they are seen as not positive, let's say a strength. How do you see them? How do you see that they can contribute really in this mutual grow culture in a team?
See, you can lead a team, whether it's a direct team or a matrix team with a stick, or it'll work. People will respond, but they'll start leaving. I don't think anybody wants to be in that environment. So you have to have if so some people have those, the skills, the soft skills naturally. They have a higher emotional intelligence. There's nothing wrong or right about it. Some people have it, some don't. It's okay. But I think it's a skill which can be developed, uh, at least a recognition, because as humans, again, having come from, the prehistoric times, we have that fight or fright mentality. All of us do. So we have to stop ourselves because we are not in that environment where an animal is chasing us. So we have to unlearn and learn certain things. Not box someone because that happens. That still happens with me where I see someone and I'll box them immediately and I stop myself. And over time, it becomes a habit that you don't do that anymore. You say, no, I need to get to know this person. I do not box, at least I don't think subconsciously, I don't box people in a box just by looking at them. I really work on getting to know them. So I think that's important and that's a skill anyone can learn. And there are plenty of books out there which one can read. And just to be successful, again, make sure you have that mindset. Because what's the ultimate goal of a leader? To really inspire your team, to meet the company's and the function's objectives. And I think for your team and yourself to be a better, if not the best version of yourself. So if you have all those things on your mind, there's nothing can stop you.
Mm.
I really like that. So we need
Yeah,
to remember, don't box,
yeah.
don't
It's
put them in a
also
box.
really this whole box, like this is relevant to this diversity and inclusion topic because we hear so much about it. Diversity is not really just putting a few brown and black people in a team. It's really like
Right.
diversity of culture and mindset, all of that. But if we are too biased, it's going to be, or we're very much like into boxing, putting people into
Mhm.
box. It's going to be challenging. It's going to be difficult to see the true value people are bringing. So
Right.
yeah, that was very useful. There is another question. This is probably are going to be our final question. It's
Okay.
about AI, I think. Who's going to ask it?
Go for it, Sarah. Ask.
Yeah, okay. So in this day and age, we cannot have these kind of conversations without addressing remote teams, AI, how everything is really changing with the work culture. So is there anything, any insight you can add to this, like how to treat this new way of being?
I think since COVID, so that was 5 years ago, right? We've come a long way, at least in remote work, remote collaboration. It has not changed going to office in person. That still happens. Hybrid is the way to go nowadays. And similarly, AI has come a long way in the last 5 years as well. I mean, how we use it, I think it boils down to how and what we use it for. So if we want to take, AI, whether that's Copilot, hopefully at work we're not going to use Chat GPT because we don't want to give that information away.
Yeah.
So in a Copilot in your company setting, if you want to review, 6 or 7 submissions together, that's a great tool to be able to get a summary within 10 minutes maybe or less of those 6, 7 documents because humanly that's not possible. So how and what you use it for, I think will shape what's to come in the future. Because we are the ones who control AI, not really as an individual, but as a society. When TV came, radio didn't go away. When internet shopping came, brick and mortar malls, they still exist. So I don't think AI will get rid of humans. Humans still have that critical thinking.
Yeah.
We have AI for our benefit. Would some misuse happen? Absolutely. But I think it's up to us how we use it and use it for collaboration, working more efficiently. So that's what it's all about, in my opinion.
Yeah, I love that. I think it's going to be um, a good partner to have, and like an enabler to all the things that we do, and maybe a lot of automation of these redundant tasks, or just make us quicker. But it's not gonna, I mean, I have a lot of faith that it's not gonna replace human
Right.
beings.
Yeah.
Going into the last one, Manish, and this one is for all the to be managers, mid-level managers, what would be one piece of advice that you would give to a new manager, especially a new manager who's trying to build a learning culture from scratch, whether he has inherited a team or he's forming a new team?
Do not lose your compassion and humanity, and really get to know your people and inspire others. And don't expect anything that you cannot give yourself. That'll be the advice I'll give.
Yeah, love that. Love that.
Thank you.
Perfect way to round this up, right, ladies?
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you.
And
Yeah.
you're a good example, Manish. So they're not just the words, just not the beautiful words. They can be really applied, and that's why we really wanted you here today to talk about this topic.
No,
So
thank you. Thank you,
that can be
Anita, for
real.
this opportunity. Yeah, yeah, great. Thank you, Sarah, Pragati. That was really good. I really enjoyed this conversation.
Thank
Thank
you.
you for your time.
Thank you.
We love this conversation, and it was so good to have someone that we actually know who's walking the talk. Thank you for being with us here today, and thank you to everyone who's listening. So goodbye from my side.
All right, take care,
Goodbye.
and maybe we'll meet sometime in real life. So looking
Yes.
forward to see
Yeah.
you guys again. Yeah.
Would love that. Thank you very much,
right.
and goodbye to everyone who's listening.
All right. Take
Bye.
care. Yeah.
Thanks for listening to The Heart of the Equation. If this episode has sparked something for you, we'd love to hear about it.
Be sure to subscribe, leave a review, and connect with us on LinkedIn or Instagram to continue the conversation.
And if you know someone who is navigating their next career step, share this episode with them. It could be exactly what they need.
We see you next time as we explore more about leading with purpose, resilience, and authenticity.
Let's keep growing together.